The laughter cut through the dinner party like a knife. "It's cute but basic," Max said, poking at my homemade lasagna with his fork. His smug smile made my stomach drop completely. I had spent 3 hours making that dish, carefully layering each ingredient with love and precision. The whole table erupted in giggles that felt like daggers. Sarah, Jake, even my best friend Monica joined in the cruel chorus. My face burned with embarrassment as I sat there, trying desperately to hold back tears that threatened to spill. Max was supposed to be my boyfriend, my supporter, my champion. Instead, he had just humiliated me in front of everyone who mattered to me. I forced a laugh and pretended it didn't hurt, but inside I was dying a slow, painful death. The lasagna I had been so proud of suddenly looked pathetic on the fancy plates. Everyone kept making jokes about my basic cooking skills while I smiled through the torture. I wanted to disappear completely. That night changed everything between us forever. I realized Max didn't respect me at all. The drive home was absolute torture that seemed to last forever. I gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned completely white. Max's cruel words kept replaying in my head over and over like a broken record. Cute but basic. The way everyone laughed still echoed in my ears like haunting music. I had thought my cooking was actually getting better with practice. I had been practicing new recipes every single week, watching cooking shows religiously, reading food blogs until my eyes hurt. But apparently I was just fooling myself completely. The city lights blurred as tears finally came in heavy waves. I couldn't hold them back anymore no matter how hard I tried. How could the person I loved most make me feel so incredibly small? When I finally got to my apartment, I threw the leftover lasagna straight in the trash. I couldn't even look at it anymore. I sat on my cold kitchen floor and cried until my eyes were swollen shut. That night, something deep inside me broke into pieces. But it also lit a fire that would change my entire life forever. My name is Brielle, and I stared at the ceiling all night, completely unable to sleep peacefully. Max's cruel words played on repeat in my tortured mind like a nightmare. But slowly, burning anger replaced the deep hurt that consumed me. He thought I was basic and worthless. Fine then. I would show him what basic really looked like when I was done. I was completely done being the girlfriend who tried to please everyone around me. I was done being small and invisible in every room. By morning, I had made a life-changing decision that would alter everything. I was going to become the absolute best chef I could possibly be. Not for Max, not for anyone else in the world, but purely for myself. I wanted to prove that his stupid opinion meant absolutely nothing to me. I started researching culinary schools online immediately. I looked up cooking classes throughout the entire city. I made detailed lists of skills I desperately needed to learn. The hurt was still there deep inside, but now it had real purpose. Max had no idea what he had just unleashed in me. Within 1 week, I enrolled in evening cooking classes at the local community college downtown. The instructor was a former restaurant chef named Antonio who absolutely didn't tolerate laziness from anyone. Cooking is not about following recipes blindly, he told our class on the very first night. It's about understanding ingredients, timing, and pure passion. I threw myself into every single lesson with complete dedication. While other students chatted casually during breaks, I stayed behind to practice knife skills repeatedly. I asked Antonio a million questions about techniques and flavor combinations that fascinated me. At home, I turned my tiny kitchen into a professional laboratory. I cooked every single night, trying new things constantly, making mistakes, learning from every failure. Max texted me a few times, but I barely responded anymore. I was too busy building something completely new and exciting. My life had become about more than just impressing people around me. It was about mastering a craft that made me feel truly alive. Antonio noticed my dedication immediately and started giving me extra tips after class. 3 months into my cooking journey, I got my first real test that mattered. Monica asked me to cater her birthday party for 20 people total. I was absolutely terrified but said yes immediately without hesitation. This was my chance to prove I wasn't basic anymore to anyone. I planned the entire menu for weeks, testing every single dish multiple times. I made herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables with balsamic glaze, and a chocolate tart that took me 4 tries to perfect completely. The night of the party, I was so nervous I could barely eat anything. But when I saw people's faces light up after tasting my food, something magical happened inside me. "This is absolutely incredible," Monica's coworker said, going back for seconds immediately. "Who made this amazing food?" Monica proudly pointed directly to me with a huge smile. That night, 3 different people asked for my contact information for their own events. I went home with a confidence I had never felt before in my life. Max's harsh words seemed like ancient history now. I was becoming someone completely new, someone powerful. Word spread quickly through Monica's entire network of friends and co-workers. Her co-workers recommended me enthusiastically to their friends. I started getting calls for dinner parties, baby showers, and small corporate events regularly. Each job taught me something completely new about timing, presentation, and client relations. I invested every penny of my earnings back into better equipment and ingredients. My tiny apartment kitchen was extremely cramped, but I made it work somehow. I developed signature dishes that people remembered fondly and requested specifically. My herb-crusted chicken became absolutely famous among the group. People started calling me that amazing caterer, instead of just Brielle the nobody. I was building a solid reputation, one successful event at a time. The confidence grew steadily with each successful party I completed. I started charging significantly more for my services because I knew I was worth it. Max's name rarely came up in my thoughts anymore at all. I was too busy creating a future he could never have imagined for me. My calendar was filling up faster than I ever expected possible. 6 months after starting my catering business seriously, I hit my first major setback that hurt. I applied to cater a high-end corporate event for a prestigious law firm downtown. The interview went really well, and I honestly thought I had the job secured. Instead, I got a cold rejection email saying they decided to go with someone more established in the industry. I stared at my laptop screen, feeling that familiar sting of rejection wash over me. For a moment, Max's voice crept back into my head menacingly. Maybe I really was just basic after all these months. But then I looked around my kitchen at all the professional equipment I had bought with my own hard earnings. I thought about all the happy clients who kept recommending me enthusiastically to others. I didn't need some fancy law firm to validate my incredible skills. Their loss would definitely be someone else's gain completely. That rejection actually motivated me to work even harder than before. I reached out to more potential clients and booked 3 events that same week alone. One ordinary Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with a text that made my heart stop completely. It was from Max himself. I hadn't heard from him in 8 long months. "Hey Brielle, I hope you're doing well these days. I'm getting married next month and wanted to ask if you'd be interested in catering my wedding ceremony. I heard you've been doing some cooking professionally now. Let me know if you're available." I read the shocking message 5 times, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Was this some kind of sick joke he was playing? The same exact person who mocked my cooking now wanted me to handle the most important meal of his entire life. Part of me wanted to delete the message and pretend I never saw it. But another part of me, the part that had worked tirelessly for months, saw this as the absolutely perfect opportunity. This was my chance to show him exactly who I had become. I set my phone down and smiled wickedly. The universe had just handed me the ultimate revenge on a silver platter. I waited 2 full hours before responding to Max's text message. I wanted him to think I was busy with other important clients, which I actually was. "Hi Max, congratulations on your engagement. I'd be happy to discuss catering your wedding. Let's set up a time to talk about your vision and budget." I kept it professional and cool. Inside, I was already planning how to make this the most spectacular meal of his entire life. This wasn't just about proving him wrong anymore. It was about showing him that the woman he once belittled had become everything he never thought possible. I spent the rest of the day researching wedding menus and pricing everything carefully. I wanted every detail to be absolutely perfect. This would be my masterpiece, my final statement about who I really was. When he called that evening, his voice sounded different somehow, smaller and less confident. "Thanks for considering this, Brielle. I really appreciate it." The tables were already turning. During our planning call, Max explained his vision for the wedding in detail. 50 guests, outdoor ceremony, elegant but not too formal overall. His fiancée Melissa wanted Italian food since they met in Rome during vacation. I took detailed notes while he talked, already forming ideas for dishes that would blow everyone away completely. "What's your budget for catering?" asked, keeping my voice steady and professional. When he told me the amount, I almost laughed out loud. It was 3 times what I used to make in a month at my old office job. "That works perfectly," I said confidently. "I'll create a custom menu featuring authentic Italian dishes with modern presentations." I could hear the surprise in his voice when he said, "That sounds really professional, Brielle." Professional, not basic anymore. I hung up feeling like I had already won the first important battle. Over the next week, I crafted a menu that would showcase every skill I had learned. Each dish would tell the story of my transformation. Creating the perfect wedding menu became my complete obsession for days. I spent countless hours researching authentic Italian recipes and putting my own creative twists on classic dishes. For appetizers, I planned bruschetta with heirloom tomatoes and burrata, and arancini stuffed with wild mushroom risotto. The main course would be osso buco with saffron risotto alongside herb-crusted branzino with lemon butter sauce. For dessert, individual tiramisu cups and cannoli with pistachio cream. I tested every recipe multiple times until they were absolutely flawless. The presentation had to be restaurant quality or better. I invested in elegant serving platters and hired 2 assistants to help with service. This wasn't just catering anymore. It was an artistic statement. Every detail mattered because this was my chance to rewrite the story Max told about me. When people tasted my food at his wedding, they would understand that I was never basic. I was extraordinary, and he had been too blind to see it. The menu tasting was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at Max's apartment. I arrived with perfectly portioned samples of each course, presented in professional containers. Max introduced me to Melissa, a pretty brunette with kind eyes who seemed genuinely excited about the food. "Brielle, Max told me you 2 used to date. It's so sweet that you're doing this for us," she said warmly. I smiled and nodded, not mentioning that Max had never told her about his cruel comments at that dinner party. We sat around their dining table as I presented each dish with detailed explanations. Max took his first bite of the bruschetta and paused dramatically. His eyes widened slightly, and I saw something I had never seen before. Genuine surprise and confusion. "This is incredible," he said quietly. Melissa was already reaching for seconds enthusiastically. "Oh my God, this is the best bruschetta I've ever had." I watched Max's face carefully as he tried each course. The confidence he used to have around me was completely gone. As the tasting continued, I could see Max struggling with something internally. His usual arrogance had disappeared completely, replaced by what looked like confusion and maybe even regret. When he tasted the osso buco, he actually closed his eyes for a moment. "Brielle, I had no idea you could cook like this," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's restaurant quality." I kept my expression neutral, but inside I was celebrating wildly. This was the moment I had been working toward for almost a year. "I've been taking it seriously," I replied simply. Melissa was gushing about every dish, already planning how to present them at the wedding. "Your guests are going to be so impressed," she told Max. "We're so lucky Brielle could do this for us." Max nodded, but I could see the wheels turning in his head. He was finally understanding what he had lost when he decided I wasn't good enough. The power dynamic between us had completely shifted, and we both knew it. The week leading up to the wedding was intense preparation like I'd never experienced. I had ordered the finest ingredients from specialty suppliers across the city. Fresh seafood flown in from the coast, imported Italian cheeses, organic vegetables from local farms. My tiny kitchen was transformed into a professional operation. I had taken the entire week off from other clients to focus entirely on this event. My assistants, Jamie and Carlos, helped me prep components that could be made ahead. We practiced the timing for service until it was choreographed perfectly. I barely slept, running through every detail in my mind constantly. This wasn't just another catering job anymore. It was my chance to close a painful chapter of my life while opening an incredible new one. On the morning of the wedding, I arrived at the venue 3 hours early. The outdoor space was beautiful, with string lights and white flowers everywhere. I set up my mobile kitchen in the adjacent building and began the final preparations. Everything had to be absolutely perfect. As guests began arriving for the cocktail hour, I watched from the kitchen window while my team served the appetizers. The reactions were immediate and enthusiastic beyond my expectations. People gathered around the bruschetta station, and I could hear compliments from across the courtyard. "These arancini are incredible," someone said loudly. "Who's the caterer?" Max was standing near the bar, trying to mingle with his guests, but I noticed his eyes kept drifting to the food stations. His college friends were raving about the appetizers, asking him where he found such an amazing caterer. I saw him point toward the kitchen and say something I couldn't hear. Through the serving window, I watched as more and more guests discovered my food. The energy of the party was building around the culinary experience I had created. This was exactly what I had hoped for. Max's special day was becoming a showcase for my talents, and everyone there would remember my food long after the ceremony was forgotten. During the main course service, something beautiful happened that exceeded my wildest dreams. The guests became so focused on the food that Max seemed to fade into the background of his own wedding. Conversations at every table revolved around the osso buco and branzino. "This is the best wedding food I've ever had," I heard someone say loudly. An older man approached the kitchen to personally compliment me. "Young lady, this meal is extraordinary. Are you available for private dinners?" I handed him my business card with a smile. Meanwhile, Max was moving from table to table, trying to reclaim attention from his guests. But they kept steering conversations back to the food enthusiastically. His attempts at wedding toasts were met with polite applause, but people were more interested in discussing the saffron risotto recipe. I could see his frustration growing as the evening progressed. This was supposed to be his big day, but instead it had become mine. The irony was delicious, and I savored every moment of his growing discomfort. By the time dessert was served, Max's confidence had completely crumbled before my eyes. The tiramisu cups were an instant hit, with guests taking photos before eating them. 3 different people asked me for my business information during service. Melissa found me in the kitchen to gush about the success of the meal. "Brielle, you've made our wedding unforgettable. Every single person has complimented the food. You're incredible at this." She hugged me warmly, completely unaware of the history between Max and me. I thanked her graciously while watching Max through the window. He was standing alone near the dance floor, looking lost at his own reception. His wedding had become a celebration of my transformation from the basic cook he once mocked into a culinary artist who commanded respect. The sweet taste of that realization was better than any dessert I could have created. I had achieved something that felt better than revenge. I had achieved redemption through my own skills and determination. As the reception wound down, Max finally approached the kitchen hesitantly. His usual swagger was completely gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. "Brielle, can we talk for a minute?" he asked quietly. I followed him to a quiet corner of the venue, curious about what he could possibly want to say. "I owe you an apology," he began, his voice shaky and uncertain. "What I said about your cooking that night at dinner. It was cruel and wrong. I had no idea you had this kind of talent." I looked at him for a long moment before responding. "You didn't know because you never bothered to find out who I really was," I said calmly. "You were too busy trying to make yourself feel important by making me feel small." He nodded, looking genuinely remorseful for the first time since I'd known him. "I was an idiot," he admitted. "I lost something special because I couldn't see what was right in front of me." The admission felt hollow and too late. Max continued his apology, but I could tell it was more about his own guilt than genuine concern for how he had hurt me. "Everyone's talking about how amazing you are," he said. "My own wedding guests care more about your food than anything else tonight." There was resentment in his voice, mixed with the regret. I realized that even in apologizing, he was still making it about himself. "This is who I always was, Max," I told him firmly. "You just chose not to see it. You decided I wasn't worth your respect or support." His face flushed red, and I could see anger starting to replace the remorse. "Well, you certainly proved me wrong," he said, his tone turning bitter. "Congratulations, I guess." I smiled at his obvious discomfort and inability to genuinely celebrate my success. "Thank you. And congratulations on your marriage. Melissa seems lovely. I hope she never has to experience the side of you that I did." With that, I turned and walked back toward the kitchen, leaving him standing alone in the shadows of his own wedding reception. The cleanup went smoothly with my team's professional help. As we packed up the equipment, several guests stopped by to compliment the meal one final time. I collected 5 new business cards and 3 requests for quotes on upcoming events. This single wedding had already paid for itself in future bookings. As I loaded the van, I caught sight of Max and Melissa saying goodbye to the last guests. She looked radiant and happy, completely unaware of the tension between her new husband and me. Max caught my eye across the courtyard and raised his hand in a hesitant wave. I nodded politely and continued loading my equipment efficiently. There was nothing left to say between us at all. I had proven everything I needed to prove, not just to him but to myself. The scared, insecure girl who had cried over his cruel words was gone forever. In her place stood a confident businesswoman who had just catered one of the most successful events of her career. Driving home that night, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't expected. The revenge I had planned had turned into something bigger and more meaningful. A complete transformation of my life and identity. I wasn't the same person who had been humiliated at that dinner party. I had used Max's cruelty as fuel to become someone he could never have imagined. The best part was that my success had nothing to do with him anymore. I had built a thriving business based on my own skills and determination. His opinion, which had once devastated me completely, now meant absolutely nothing to me. I pulled into my apartment parking lot and sat in the car for a moment, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. The scared girl who used to seek Max's approval was gone forever. In her place was a woman who had learned to value herself and her talents. That transformation was worth more than any revenge could ever be. Monday morning brought a flood of emails and phone calls from Max's wedding guests. Word had spread quickly through their social circles about my exceptional catering services. I booked 4 new events just from those referrals, including a corporate gala for 50 people and an intimate anniversary dinner for a wealthy couple. My calendar was filling up faster than ever before. The irony wasn't lost on me that Max's wedding had become the launching pad for the next phase of my career. By trying to humiliate me years ago, he had unknowingly set me on a path that led to my greatest professional triumph. I spent the morning responding to inquiries and updating my portfolio with photos from the wedding. The pictures showed elegant food presentations that looked worthy of a high-end restaurant. Looking at them, I felt proud of how far I had come. The woman who created these dishes was confident, skilled, and successful. She was everything the old me had dreamed of becoming but never believed possible. Weeks passed without any contact from Max, which was exactly how I preferred it. My business continued growing rapidly, with bookings extending months into the future. I hired 2 full-time assistants and rented a commercial kitchen space to handle larger events. The local food magazine featured me in an article about up-and-coming caterers in the city. Reading about my success in print felt surreal and wonderful. The journalist described my food as innovative yet comforting, with technical skill that rivals established restaurants. No one would ever call my cooking basic again. I framed the article and hung it in my new office space. Sometimes I would look at it and remember that painful dinner party where everything started. That night had been the catalyst for everything I had achieved since. Max had intended to break me down completely, but instead he had broken me open to possibilities I never knew existed. His cruelty had become my greatest gift, though he would never understand that irony. 3 months after the wedding, my phone rang with an unknown number. When I answered, I heard Max's familiar voice on the other end. "Hi Brielle, it's Max. I hope you don't mind me calling you." I almost hung up immediately, but curiosity got the better of me. "What do you need, Max?" I asked coolly. He explained that he was planning a dinner party for Melissa's birthday and wondered if I might be available to cater it. "I know it's probably beneath you now," he said, "but you're honestly the best caterer we know." The desperation in his voice was obvious and pathetic. I let the silence stretch between us before responding. "I'm afraid I'm booked solid through the end of the year," I told him truthfully. "You might want to try calling some of the other caterers in town. I'm sure you'll find someone suitable for your needs." His disappointment was obvious in his voice. "Right, of course. You're probably way too successful now for small parties like ours." I smiled as I hung up the phone. That final phone call from Max was the perfect ending to our story. He had gone from mocking my cooking to desperately wanting my services, proving just how completely the tables had turned. I didn't take his catering request because I didn't need his business anymore. My calendar was full of clients who valued my work and treated me with respect from the beginning. The scared girl who once sought his approval had grown into a confident businesswoman who could afford to be selective about her clients. My catering company now employed 6 people and had a waiting list for bookings. Food critics were starting to take notice of my work, and I was considering opening my own restaurant someday. None of it would have happened without that painful night when Max called my cooking basic. His cruelty had been the spark that ignited my transformation. Now, whenever young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, I tell them that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. You just have to be brave enough to turn pain into power and prove everyone wrong.